Volume. Okay. All right. So, as I said earlier yesterday on Twitter, this review, as you can see, has some spoilers from the title crawl. This review is over Ash vs. Evil Dead Season 1. I'm going to be reviewing the rest of the series throughout the rest of the month. And I meant to do this last night, but things got really busy and really tight, so I wasn't able to do anything. And I probably should have waited until after the food from the snack I just had, which you can see right here, orange and breakfast bar. Well, I should have washed those out with some water, but with that being said, I would like to get into this series and pretty much how interesting and how much of a good start to the series. And I think most people know, whether they've seen the series or not, all the way through, that the final season ends on a cliffhanger. And a lot of all three of these seasons end on cliffhangers, just to give that away. And I feel like that's basically the case for almost every Evil Dead movie or show, except for the remake. Technically, Army of Darkness should be taken out of the conversation, but the original ending makes it qualify for a cliffhanger ending. So this series picks up 34 years after the original film, which came out in 1981. And Ash ends up fighting the titular Evil Dead because he got high off weed and read from the Necronomicon with some prostitute that he had over in his trailer home. So right off the bat, you can really tell that they're kind of building off the character traits that Ash had in Army of Darkness, which is the. It seems like throughout the series, Ash becomes progressively more stupid than he was in the previous interpretation of the character. And that's kind of become a running joke, is that he's good at fighting the demons, but he's awful at staying out of trouble. So there's that. I also really enjoy how the series has him take on a few sidekicks. You got Pablo Simon Bolivar and Kelly Maxwell, played by Dana Di Lorenzo and Ray Santiago. And right, I mean, they got great chemistry with Bruce Campbell. You do kind of get the sense that Pablo really does look up to Ash as a mentor and an authority figure, even though Ash doesn't really prove to be good in either of those categories until later on through the season. And Kelly, I think you could easily call her. She's probably the one who takes this with the most rational approach. Because Pablo kind of goes along with Ash's plans, even though he has issues with it. But I really like Kelly because he has. I really like Kelly because she has that really strong spark and that good punch, where she's not really going to follow anything stupid, and she does have a lot of guts, which I really do appreciate. And there's also moments in this season, as well as the series, where Pablo and Kelly get their moments to shine. Kelly fighting off those demons in the diner later in the season. Pablo taking the group to see his mystical uncle to try and get a better idea of how to stop the evil. So there's a lot of cool stuff that these guys do. And the season, I would say that the first two or three episodes are really just set up. I would argue that the first half of the season is just setting up the story, but the second half is when you really get into the action comedy, the one liners, the silly quips and jokes throughout fight scenes. There were some of that in the in the first few episodes, but it really, I think after everyone leaves Pablo's uncle's hut, that's when things really start to pick up. And one thing this is pretty much the case throughout the entire season, but it's really applicable here throughout the entire series, but it's really applicable here. I really do like how Ash's catchphrase "groovy" is not used a whole lot during this series. It's used only twice. Once at the end of the first episode after the boss fight, and then the second time is at the final episode right before the closing credits. So I really like that they didn't milk that bit to the point where it would be annoying. I really did appreciate that. And I also like how, while Ash is trying to be the reluctant hero, he does have cops chasing after him because they think he's somehow behind. Well, they think he's behind all the murders that have been going on recently, and in reality, he's behind the murderers coming around, but not in the people getting killed unless they're attacking him. You know what I mean? Like, he's only killing monsters. He's not murdering innocent people in cold blood. Yeah. Anyway, and one of the cops ends up befriending Ash after trying to catch him repeatedly, and then realizes that Ash is actually in the right for what he's doing. So that was very well done. I feel like one of the best elements of this series that I can't elaborate on until I review seasons 2 and 3 is Lucy Lawless's character, Ruby Nobi. They did a great job at making her mysterious, and it's hard to tell if she's really on the good side or not. At the end of this season, you can see she's kind of on the good side because she does convince Ash to let her take the burden of taking care of the Deadites and the Necronomicon. And I think that probably is a better choice. I mean, I know that it was kind of presented as a risky idea because Ruby can't be trusted, but knowing what would eventually be learned about her later in the series, at least in the second season, that was a better idea because she is the more responsible one of the two. And this is really the first time I've seen Lucy Lawless and everything, and she did a great job at sort of wanting you to make sure learn more about the character, and it was also very well written. All the characters are written very well. They have very distinct personalities. They're all likable, even if Ash can be a little bit of a dick sometimes. But I mean, Bruce Campbell makes that character work. I don't think there's any other actor that could pull off the clueless stupidity and yet the badass action hero that the character is. And that's probably one of the best things about the Ash character is that he's not responsible. He causes a lot of problems, but he's willing to make up for them and he's willing to fight back. I mean, he's basically an anti-hero because he's not really doing this to save the world necessarily. He's doing this to make up for a mistake and save the world in the process. You know, there's never a sense that he feels a duty to protect people. He's just doing it for his own skin and for those involved. But overall, I this is probably the only series I could think of that's a sequel series from a franchise that spawned in the 80s other than Cobra Kai that was very much so beloved and very successful. The only difference is, aside from the genres, is that the Cobra Kai show is probably going to last longer than Ash versus Evil Dead at this point. And I'll get more into the Ash versus Evil Dead ending when I talk about season 3, but really all I have to say right now, and I'm surprised I could talk about this review in less than 9.5 minutes, is that this is a great start to introducing the Ash character to to a new generation and throwing in new characters. It was very well done. The effects for a TV show were pretty good, and there's still some good moments of creepy atmosphere being built up. And I also like how they also build on the fact that Ash has PTSD from his adventures. So that they took a lot of advantages of what they could do with the character and what they could do with the other characters that they throw along into the situation. So that's really all I have to say about season 1. I'm going to record my guitar cover tomorrow night, and you will see it on my birthday this Friday. See ya.